I am so excited to share this topic with you about tax planning and tax strategies to help you along the journey throughout your business and your personal life. I'm Margot Massery, your heartfelt CFO, and I'm going to start with this question: to defer or accelerate your expenses and income. Now, when it comes to this question, just jumping in, so many people want to increase their income and they want to not pay and they want the best part of taxes. So today I'm going to show you a few different things so that you can have these tools in your tool house when these things come up. So when you learn these strategies to save money and to scale your business, you're going to see that you don't need to work harder. It's more about working smarter. In this lesson, I want to show you how you can take your business to the highest level. By the end of our time together, you are going to learn what tax preparation is and the key steps that help you in that situation. Now, if you are preparing, your planning situation is going to be that much simpler and you're going to see the flow. I want you to stay with me until the end so that you can see the bonus type of consultation call that I am offering you so that you can get the best of this information on top of the loads of information in this lesson today. So do me a favor, turn off all distractions. And right now, just bring me all your attention because a lot of you are confused and you just don't know the importance of the preparing and the planning. I have these conversations every day, all day, and with my clients, even if they're current clients for years, what is involved in the preparation and what is involved in the planning. Now, I remember years ago when I was getting myself into this process, there were so many things that happened that led me to think differently and not really to even feel like I was able to do it as a professional for others. And you're probably thinking like, oh, how could that be? You're trained in this. People think that you're perfect at this, but to be able to do it for someone else and be able to have them love the process is a completely different way of thinking. So you might feel full of fear right now. And fear is normal when it comes to money and taxes. You may feel full of anxiety. A lot of people push this off to one specific time of year, or they push it off to somebody else because they feel like they just don't know. Now, you may feel full of anger. When you feel full of anger, you may not even know what to do with that anger. And with that anger, what happens is that you still have to translate that anger into a knowing so that you can do your preparing and your planning. So in this lesson today, I want to go from fear to confidence, take you from anxiety to a relaxed place, and from anger to peace. Now, I specifically put this chart together because these are the common feelings that happen to people when it comes to taxes, money, bank statements, and all of these different things. And I want to bring you to that calm place so that you will feel confident, relaxed, peaceful when it comes around to this, and you can jump into the knowing. Now, a lot of these things you may not think is possible. These are items that I do with my one-on-one clients. And what happens is that they, as time goes on, they feel stronger and stronger. And I want that for you as well. Now, a lot of people have these goals where they say they want to lose 20 pounds. They want to write a best-selling book. They have like these things that they just think are just wishful thinking. There are surface changes. To achieve your goals, you need to take actions. So if you change your identity, then it's easier to change your actions. Now, to really be intimate with this process, you really have to think of the little steps that will bring you to the bigger picture. So if you want to lose that weight, if you want to be that author, you have to really think about the incremental steps that are going to help you get there. So in this webinar, I'm going to take you from tax preparation. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to learn a few strategies. And after that, we're going to do some planning. Now, It's best to start with the preparation and go into the planning so that you can think of your future in a holistic way. After that, we're going to go into, like I told you, some strategies, and we're going to know the difference between those two. Lots of people don't know the difference. They think in the preparation, they are doing the planning. Planning is specifically looking at your future, what is happening, and also it's looking at possibly the past of what you were missing so that you can plan better for the future. And in that gap of the preparation and the planning is the savings. So your first pillar goes, where we're going is you're going from your first pillar to your second pillar, and we're going to bring you out to the fifth. And then if you want to work with me or even just have the call, I'm going to share those opportunities with you as well. And then at the end, if there's any questions, and if you're watching the replay as well, you can just hit reply and ask me those questions or schedule the call as well. So let's jump in and start with the tax preparation. The first step is to do something different than that you have not been doing. Now, a lot of people think the process is working for them, but they have that but with their process, but they're not willing to do something different. You need to be coachable. You need to be open to doing something different. That's where the fear and the anxiety come in of doing something different than what you think should be done and taking on different actions. Now, the change begins in January when you gather the documents, and you'll need to be able to file your income tax returns. In a way, this is happening across the 12 months, but in a different capacity depending on where you are. You could be on extension, you could be filing on time. The common person, it's in their blood to think it's okay an extension. Following this process, what if I told you you didn't have to think about an extension again, because you're going to incrementally do these changes. You're going to begin by collecting papers and information that you need to file your taxes. I was actually just having a call with a client right before this where we have this onboarding process where it's called the roadmap. And he was organizing the documents for the roadmap. And the roadmap, I call it like the navigation system. So it's like the navigation system to your life so that we can have a system for you going forward regularly to support your business and personal life. So he really was having a hard time organizing the papers because he's like, this happens and that happens and all of these different things. And we're stuck on what we think we can't accumulate versus just focusing and just doing it in imperfect action and collecting what you can, which for example could be going online to your bank and then just simply saving consecutive bank statements on your end. A lot of people use those portals as storage units instead of collecting it on their end and really having stuff that they can use as guidance, and then if anything happens for audit purposes. Now, this reminds me of a different conversation with a different client where they have these major fear of audits. And the major fear that he has of audits is because when he has a lot of intercompany transactions. So intercompany transactions, if you don't know what that means, is when you take money from one business to another, you transfer money from one to another, all of these different types of things. So he's worried about the audit trail when it comes to that. So depending on where you live, the forms you'll need to submit for calculating payment deductions will start to become available January and March. So the reason why this is important is because the forms that you need to fill out, for example, at the beginning of the year, you're going to need to fill out new paperwork for payroll. So if you're on W-2 and you're an employee, you need to refresh your cycle and get into new paperwork. If it comes into taxes, you're going to need to make sure that you get your year-end forms of your payroll or if you're a contractor and those types of items. Let's talk about some strategies in terms of tax preparation. Your key in tax preparation is two parts to be successful, or at least in my eyes. So I want to break it up and share with you this quote that I thought by Oprah Winfrey was really cool. Real integrity is doing the right thing, knowing that nobody's going to know whether you did it or not. So sometimes for our soul, we just want to know that we did the right thing. And I feel like that's really like a common habit in all my clients where they're like, hey, I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing for my customers, for myself, for my family. So, at the end of the day, when it comes all down to integrity, it's really, really, it's really cool. So the two parts to this is planning for major expenses and reviewing accounts receivable. So accounts receivable is your incoming income. Now, sometimes when you need to pay expenses, it's hard because you don't really know when the money is coming in, or maybe you know when the money coming in and there's a delay. So I'll give you an example from my own life. I gave my word to somebody that I was going to pay something, and something else emergency came up that I had to put priority to that first. Now, even as a CFO, situations come up where either I have to come up with extra cash, or I can't pay something on time, or I can't pay something at all, depending on how things are and the time of the month. There's so many different factors. So reviewing your accounts receivable and really being able to pay in cash flow is a true skill. Now, me personally, for my business and my life, I don't use credit cards. I pay everything based on cash flow. I don't do anything on credit. And why did I choose that? I found that as a business owner and as a woman, as an independent woman, that having extra bills at the end of the month and a big credit card bill was not something I wanted to do anymore. I wanted to know my bills were paid and be able to make sure that I save. Now, my theory is that I spend after I save. Saving for me became foundational for myself, for my children, for my future, because I look at that as like a bonus for myself. So the various types of savings that I do for myself, which is retirement savings, and also if I want to buy myself something, maybe like a pair of earrings or a new necklace, or anything of that nature. If I want to invest in something for my business, so depending on where you're at and what's going on, and those priorities can change. Now, the other part to this is planning for major expenses. So for instance, in business, if you want to hire somebody new and it's not necessarily an income generating person, you need to see that you can pay that person. So what I generally tell my clients is, if you're nervous about taking on an expense, practice paying it before you actually agree to it, because it's not a good situation when it comes to pay the bill and you can't pay that and you don't have the money. And what happens is in those situations is that when you don't have the money, you could feel shamed, fearful, anxious, and all of these types of things. And it's just not a good feeling. So a combination of things that we're talking about today is that I'm hoping that you will be able to take these skills and make incremental steps in your journey. Now, tax planning is something new for a lot of people, and some people call it tax advisory services. There's all sorts of names. And tax planning right now and in my world lately has been my all-time favorite. It's a way to look at together with an accounting professional holistically what's going on. So now I'll just talk about myself. When I plan my year, I'm looking at last year what I did, and I'm looking going forward what I want for myself. So am I planning to save more? Am I planning to buy an asset? And am I just planning to stay stagnant so that I can see what strategies tax-wise I can implement? Now, I noticed this year with my clients that implementing the strategies was a true struggle. They would want to plan, they would want to know how they could save, but when it came to actually implementing it, it was a whole different ballgame. And when it came to that, it said to me, like, what can I do to help them implement it? So it was something simple of like, okay, you want to take on 5 strategies? Let's just start with one and then work from there. The other beauty about tax planning is that chances are you're already doing something, but it's altering the behavior, your actions, to be able to really have the documentation to support the planning, the implementation of the planning. So just like you plan your life, you have to plan your taxes too. And a lot of people, this is a really powerful slide and a really powerful statement. A lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to plan their taxes. Just the concept of taxes, just the concept of money is fearful for so many. It helps you if you monitor throughout the entire year. Now, most people compartmentalize taxes as year end and like a thing where they have to stay up all night and just get it into their CPA. Now, what if I told you that's costing you more money that way than doing it all year? And then on the other hand, you can look at me, it can be like, that means I have to look at this every week, every month, all year? Yes. Just like the mortgage comes every month, your credit card bill comes every month, this is something you need to look at. Simply because if something goes wrong, you have the chance to tweak it. Not only do you have the chance to tweak it, but you have the chance to step in and make it better. Now, a lot of people think when information happens that was like a mistake, they think like, whew, and then all that fear and anxiety come up. But that misinformation is your key and your clues to your next step. Now, hiring an expert will help you guide forward the moving parts to prioritize. Now, what you think could be a priority may not be a priority for somebody else. And I say it that way because what we see, it's like it's only you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And working together with an expert, they help you prioritize in the highest way functional and be able to really increment it as much as possible, but also to your capabilities. So that team effort is really what's important in this process. So I want to take a minute to just share with you a few of the things that tax planning addresses. It addresses expenses, retirement plans, investments to determine how much they affect the long-term income tax filings. So I'm going to talk about this one by one. Expenses. So lots of times things that you're already doing in like a home office, meals, travel can be deductible, but it's a matter of how you're accumulating them, how you're documenting them so that we can include it. Also, how you're paying for those. Retirement plans, they're self-directed IRAs, 401k, all of these different things. If you have an employer, they match you, all of these things. But it's important to know which ones are suitable for you and to be able even to set a budget for what you want to save. Now, I'll tell you, for me, I have a minimum of what I do, but I also call it like a hairy, scary goal of how much more I want to put in my savings, because what happens is that it's all going back to me. Now, that muscle for a lot of people to save for the future and not for today is a whole different characteristic, because people don't think like that. And then when it comes to closer to retirement, they experience a huge shortfall. But when you're putting away the money, it's really money back to you, but just in a different style on how you're categorizing it. The next thing is investments to determine their effect. So lots of times I work with developers, investors, or business developers, all sorts of things, and they're investing in new properties. But let's say even in a business, let's say you want to buy the building that you're in, or if you want to buy machinery for your business, or there's so many different types of investments out there, and you want to understand the tax consequences. I have a different client of mine where there's a lot of research involved for their assets, and they get R&D credits, and they had no idea. And the concept of tax planning brought that in, which actually brings me to, when I talk about this, like it brings up so many stories that I realize that are highlights with my clients. So it's really exciting to share this. So I have a different client of mine. When he signed on, he was doing a basement, and he was doing the basement simply because he was starting a business while he was a full-time employee. And he just happened to say, he's like, I need to pay the contractor, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hold on, what are you doing? Ends up, all of that money we were able to deduct because he was really crafting himself a separate business. And along with deducting those expenses, there were other strategies that came up for that. So, oh, I didn't talk about this. How many times do you check your finances? So I keep saying, oh my gosh, this reminds me of a client story, but this reminds me of a different story with a different client, is that he would log into his bank account multiple times a day. He was just so panicky about money, but really at a point in your bank account, it doesn't change throughout the day. But if you know how much you have and there's a cushion, the way you built in, the way you spend, the way you charge, the way you agree to expenses, you're not going to need to check your finances multiple times a day. You can just do it once a week, once a month. Some people don't even check in, depending on where they're at in life. So having these strategies in your wheelhouse will put you more at ease if you start to easily take these on, and really just even start with one. So what I want to talk about next is actual strategies that I think you might like and that can help you. If you have to choose, be the one who does things instead of the one who is seen to do things. Now, it's a really powerful slide because if you think about it, one who does things, it's like if you look at social media and you look at that one influencer and she or he is always doing, and then you're like admiring it from like the background, but you're not that person. So what if I told you in this area to really just take control of your money, whether there's constant trauma, and being able to put this in, you're going to be the one who's doing. Now, the first thing, this topic is like near and dear to my heart. It's an LLC versus an S corp. Now, if you're interested on this topic beyond of what I shared, feel free to go on my LinkedIn profile or just ask me for the links. I have a whole entity structure where I've talked about this because it's the common problem in professionals, that they are not necessarily in the right entity. Or what happens is they begin in the right entity and then business changes and we need to evolve into a different one. So an LLC versus an S corp. LLC, at least you're in the corporation. S corp, what happens is that you can actually take a salary, a W-2 salary, and be able to save on taxes. If you didn't take, when you don't take salary, there's a double taxation level of self-employment that is like, could be 25% alone. A client of mine yesterday, we were talking about this, on this point alone on the self-employment, he was like, I must have a tax plan. Because he's like, when it comes to that self-employment, he's like, it just eats me up alive. And it's interesting because I remember when I did my tax plan, that was the one thing that would bother me as well. So as the name suggests, LLC offers business owners a degree of protection from personal liability, meaning personal assets, it won't be at risk. So it's great, right? Because some people sometimes are also like, it's a hobby to a business. They don't really know. I have a different client of mine, and he's like, when I started this, he goes, I just didn't know how it was going to go. So he didn't want to get into all of this, but it's how cool could it be is that now you need to evolve into the right entity, and alone, that's another strategy at your fingertips. Named for subchapter S of the revenue, S corps share so many properties of good old regular corporations. Now, S corps alone, just being able to take salary, people just believe that this is not a good entity structure, but this is a popular one that we suggest because it puts people into payroll, which a lot of for professionals these days, they don't take, or what happens is they take draws that put them in the self-employment status. Now that we talked about the preparation, now that we talked about the planning, I want to show you what the difference is. If life were predictable, it would cease to be life and be without flavor. So unfortunately, business isn't linear, and neither is it, it's not predictable either. So what happens is in this situation is that because it's not predictable, you have to put some things into place in terms of structure to start putting yourself foundations. Now, a common thing when people work for themselves is because they say their check isn't reliable. But to a degree, there's a pattern of what happened that you can at least begin that. So tax preparation and planning are two separate components, but they complement each other. So I threw this slide in here of a client what she said, and key tasks that she wanted someone that she can trust in a small business. Now, the key task is implementing these strategies. Now, if you see how this comes together, implementing the strategies is something different than actually just knowing that you can put them in. I have a different client of mine. The implementing was really causing a lot of strife between her and I. Her husband got on the phone, and I actually just said it to him outright. And I said to him, you don't have to put them in. You paid for the process. However, it's to your benefit to implement them. It required so much more. However, without the support, they really weren't able to do it because mentally there was so much more happening in terms of like cash flow, moving it around, paying bills. And it is an art, and it is something that through time, you start to strengthen that skill. Now, I love this slide so much, and then we're just going to talk about it for a few minutes. Tax planning examines and tweaks areas that might be overlooked. Now, a few minutes ago, I just told you about a client of mine who was doing all this construction. He was just like, oh, this is something I have to do, blah, blah, blah. And he was just doing things to the bare bones. And he was like, oh, I'm saving money. I'm doing my own taxes and different things. It doesn't take time. It requires an expert to help, but can have great benefits in the long run for your personal and business finances. So he thought he was doing the right thing for his family by doing his own taxes. But really what was happening is that he was losing the benefits by somebody supporting him and bringing out those things. And it was really cool to see that bulb go off in his head of those opportunities. So the obvious question is, do you want to stay confused, or do you want to follow a proven roadmap? Now, after this slide, a lot of clients, or followers are like, of course, that's why I'm here, Margot, listening to the replay or live, a combination of both. But actually stepping in is always something that people, I've realized, take time. So I really thought about this, and I wanted to craft something that I thought was special and unique to really help you. So our go-to program, we call it Silver Starters. And Silver Starters is really just a simple accounting and bookkeeping solution to keep you intact. Now, simple in the sense of so that all your expenses and income are recorded, you get reconciliations, reports, and those types of things always, so that you're ready for tax purposes. Now, I'm actually going to jump a slide. I have bonused for people who watch this webinar, or of course for my live people as well, my live friends. I'm calling it a savings strategy call. A savings strategy call is when we go over things almost from like a pre-planning perspective, so that you can see how the investment would pay for itself. Now, there's no commitment with any of this. This savings strategy call is completely free. And if you decide to step in further, you can think about the Silver Starter. And there's other more advanced programs that we have, but we want to make this as easy as possible for people to flow in through the process so that they can get support. Now, in this package, we have financial development calls, which I think are truly, truly important. And you get access to our team. And like I wrote here, you get the savings strategy call, you get one extra call per month, so that would make it 3. And in addition, you get all of these tasks taken care of for you. Excuse me. Now, the importance of doing this is that the categorization of expenses alone is that it highlights what you're spending, and it brings you into those pre-steps that we talked about for the planning. Month-end reconciliation is just so you see your income, expenses, and how much money you made or you didn't make. Looking at the reports is really the incremental part here, is really the important part here, because looking at the reports is really strengthening that muscle. It's not just like those steps, but it's that big step of really looking at your numbers and seeing where you're at with your goals, if refining your steps for the next month and doing things that can really help you. Now, I'm going to show you a big part to my daily life. It's called the High Performance Planner. Now, in this High Performance Planner, it has some minds. I'm actually going to open it to a empty page to the best possible. There's some mindset stuff at the beginning of the day, and at the end of the day, and it works out the time. Now, my calendar is all electronic on my phone. However, I also do this on purpose so that things like this, I can add to my day. And the reason why I show you this is because sometimes when you see those breaks throughout the day, people go on social media and all these things. But when you see glaring breaks in your day is when you can add in these things, and it can just be for 10 minutes. And the more you do this, the quicker it becomes. So the saving strategy call is something that you will begin with, and you will see the benefits of that. And I just want to bring up a few different things of like, why you're here. The first thing is you're a business owner and you don't need to know and you're a business owner who knows that they don't know their numbers, and you're ready to take it, whether you're ready or not. Now, a lot of people don't know their expenses. A lot of people don't know their income. And that's the reason why they go into a deficit, they go into credit card debt and all of these things, because they just don't know their numbers, or they're born with this belief that, they're bad with money and math and all sorts of things, because maybe like a teacher said it, or like they didn't get great grades. But there's so many tools to support you to get you across that barrier. You're a business owner who doesn't know their numbers, but are ready to take it on. So before you didn't know, but now you're like, I'm just ready to take it on. And again, like anything, taking it on is one step at a time. Another part to this is that you're a business owner who has tried other bookkeeping systems, but you need to know certain things yourself. It doesn't matter, if you're the owner of Amazon or Facebook and all of these things, there's still things as a business owner you need to know that complements working with your accounting team. And what happens is when you make better decisions, healthier decisions, and educated decisions. And when you know those certain things in your wheelhouse and you actually see it working for you, it is an amazing feeling. It's better than diamonds. It's better than a Maserati, because you know what? When you can buy those things when you're ready, if that's what you desire, in peace and in full joy to know that you can. Sometimes this one I heard in a previous webinar of mine where they were using payment processing systems for their accounting systems. And what happens is like, he's like, I'm just sick of logging into ADP, the credit card processor, and all of these different things. And he's like, I'm just sick of not knowing. And when this came up, I was like, wow, people have these online portals, and it became like a replacement for an accounting system. And a lot of people don't think that they need an accountant. They have this belief, I can do it myself. I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to pull up the information off of Google. And my favorite one is like, my aunt does it. I have a free CPA and he does all my needs, but I'm paying $40,000 in taxes a year. Now, paying isn't bad. It's just paying accurately is the question. So the other one that I love is they say, my team does everything for me. And the team does everything for me, but as a business owner, you just don't know. And it comes back to us as business owners that what happens is that, do you know? And what happens is do you know is usually the question of they don't know. And that brings me back into what's compiled in our basic package of, getting you into a system that completely supports you. Now, there could be less things, there could be more things, depending on where your business is at. It's just like a simple starter solution to get you into something so that you can get the support that you need. Now, a client of mine that just signed on yesterday, it was a $900,000 business, and he has been doing it for years himself. In the 45 minutes or so conversation, like I found him 3 new strategies that was going to save him a ton of money. And I said to him, forget about the money that you're going to save. It's being compliant. And I want to say that again. We all look about saving money, but we don't realize that not only do you need to plan your life, but being compliant is super important. Which brings me to, again, this slide of, if your team does everything for you and you don't know, or you think that you don't need an accountant, or if you feel like the payment processes systems are not doing anything for you, I would love for you to schedule a call with me and really see that you can share more about your business. I can help you and be able to go through all of your needs, wants, desires, and put you into the life of moving forward. So that's what I got for today. Whether you're live or watch the replay, I'm going to stick around for some questions and be able to, see what you thought about the webinar. If you are watching the replay, I always suggest, just take a few minutes and jot down all the diamonds that you've learned. And if you don't mind, fill out. We did like a little bit of a questionnaire of what you thought about the webinar, what you want to know, and a few little quick questions, and sharing feedback and all of those good things. So on that note, I'm Margot Master, your heartfelt CFO, and I am excited that I got to share this with you. And stay tuned. We're going to do these webinars every month, the first Tuesday of the month. So feel free to let me know what you want to see, because there's so many topics that we talk about. Bye for now.